In the town of Traumaville, a group of high school students experience strange events when a nuclear plant opens close to campus. Things get increasingly weirder when a teen couple is tricked into taking radiation-laced substances, leading to the creation of a toxic waste nightmare. At the Traumaville nuclear utility plant, a burst pipe of radioactive waste sets off an alarm and workers rush to contain the leak. The arrogant plant owner, Mr. Paley, ignores warnings of the leak seeping into town, refusing to shut down the facility for proper containment. The radioactive waste soon makes its way into nearby Traumaville High School, where nerdy student Dewey unwittingly drinks from a contaminated water fountain. Later, in a class full of rowdy, colorful personalities, only Dewey receives high praise from the teacher. Then, Principal Wesley announces a nuclear evacuation drill over the PA system, a countermeasure in case of any accident at the neighboring plant. While the students line up by the door, Dewey starts twitching and chokes the jokester Greg, green ooze dribbling from the nerdy boy's mouth. Popular student Warren punches Dewey, who retaliates as green wastewater spurts from his ears as well. Dewey loses control of his body and jumps out the classroom window, falling down several floors onto the parking lot. A crowd swarms around him and they watch the young man's body disintegrate into grotesque smoking remains. A few days later, Warren and his girlfriend Chrissy notice plant workers checking the school grounds for radiation levels. Meanwhile, Mr. Paley brushes off reporters speculating about his plant's connection to Dewey's death. He shifts blame on Dewey apparently owning 2 microwave ovens, covering up the leak at the plant. Paley leaves one last comment for the reporters, proclaiming that the Traumaville nuclear plant is safe and will outlast the town's citizens. At the high school, Warren and Chrissy joke around with friend Eddie and his girlfriend Kathy. Eddie then takes Kathy to the school's fallout shelter to make out. When green sludge drips onto her stomach, Kathy reactively smacks Eddie in the face. The next day, Chrissy and Warren tell off Greg and Eddie for treating Dewey's death as a joke. Chrissy mentions how a number of strange happenings in school started after the plant opened. Warren backs her up, but Eddie downplays any adverse effect the plant might have on the town. Chrissy then points out a gang of students in outlandish punk rock outfits who used to be the Honor Society. The gang, who Warren notes as having changed almost instantly, call themselves the Cretans and routinely beat up students. They subject one particular student to prolonged torment after shaking him down for money. One day at the Traumaville High bake sale, a Cretan named Gonzo crashes his motorcycle through the tables, destroying a tiered cake. A fellow Cretan, Spud, then instructs him to acquire illegal herbs from the power plant, earning Gonzo a tantrum from his girlfriend Muffy. Gonzo meets the other Cretans at the back of the school before making their way to the plant. After buying the illegal herbs from a plant worker, Gonzo remarks on how fast the plant grows in the location. Another Cretan, Pete, comes up with the idea of branding it Atomic High so they can charge the students more. Nearby, the radioactive waste appears to aid the rapid growth of the illegal plants. At the Traumaville High cafeteria, Eddie and Greg manage to convince a group of girls to attend a college frat party with them on Saturday night. The next day, Eddie and Greg try to coax a reluctant Warren to come to the party. They argue that his and Chrissy's attendance are sure to attract more students to come as well. Days later, Pete and Gonzo coerce Eddie into buying a single roll of Atomic High for $10, claiming it makes girls more agreeable. Eddie considers giving the spliff to Warren to help put Chrissy in a more agreeable mood. Come Saturday night, the frat party is in full swing, complete with a rock band and a mass of hormone-fueled young people. Eddie and Greg welcome Warren and a cautious Chrissy to the indoor beach party. Greg then drags Warren towards a different crowd of friends, leaving Chrissy to chat with a group of girls from their school. Warren and Chrissy receive advice from their respective friends to maximize their experiences before high school ends. Chrissy and the girls rejoin Warren and his friends, just as Eddie tricks Warren into taking a hit of Atomic High. The teens make the couple take turns on the spliff until Warren tosses it to the floor, where it gets stepped on. Having had enough of the shenanigans, Warren and Chrissy decide to leave the party. While Chrissy retrieves their coats in an upstairs room, the effects of Atomic High kick in and she starts caressing her body. She pulls in an unaffected Warren to the bed, pleasantly surprising the young man. When Chrissy takes off her top, Warren gives in and stumbles out of his clothes. As the couple is consumed by their passion, Eddie and Greg gawk by the stairs, convinced by the effects of the herb. After taking Chrissy home, an elated Warren goes to bed and experiences a delirious dream. His face takes on a decaying appearance, and something large grows beneath his blankets. Meanwhile, strange dreams also begin to plague Chrissy, whose stomach swells rapidly until a black tentacle pops out from her navel. Warren's right chest also bulges and discharges a dark green liquid, but he suddenly wakes up, with no signs of his body mutating. Chrissy wakes up from the nightmare as well, her body looking normal. The next day at the school cafeteria, Warren confronts Eddie Eddie and Greg about the herb and its sickening effects. He gets mad upon finding out that it came from the Cretans. Warren then joins Chrissy at a table, and they discover that they both experienced hallucinations from the Cretans' product. Gonzo intimidates them by grabbing a handful of their pasta, but Chrissy dissuades Warren from getting into a fight. The Cretans' leader, Spike, flirts with a German teacher, then kisses her passionately. The teacher later turns into a Cretan herself and makes out with Spike in a restroom. That afternoon, Warren comes home feeling dizzy. As the electronics near him react to his presence, he soon collapses to the floor. Elsewhere, Pete tricks an elderly woman into handing over her purse under the guise of helping Spike from biting his tongue during a fake seizure. Once Pete acquires the purse, Spike gets up and starts beating up the poor woman. Pete then meets up with Beethoven, another Cretan, in a back alley when Warren walks up to them, looking menacing. Warren's face has turned grotesque, his temples throbbing and green sludge oozing from his mouth and ears. Pete hits Warren in the face but injures his hand in the process. Warren then overpowers both Cretans with little effort, knocking them aside like ragdolls. Spike enters the fray, but Warren easily tosses him over a wall and into a dumpster, where he loses consciousness. Overcome with ferocity, Warren shoves his arm down Pete's throat, ending the young man's life. Sometime later, Spike recounts the run-in with the rest of the Cretans. Despite being unable to identify the assailant, he remarks that the stranger weirdly resembled Warren. In his room, Warren jolts awake, his surroundings almost entirely trashed. At cheerleading practice, a listless Chrissy suddenly groans in pain and leaves the gym. She makes her way to the restroom, where she tries to suppress her bulging belly. Chrissy then throws up a greenish-black mutated tadpole-like creature into the toilet. She exits the stall in shock and collapses on the floor, and is later taken to the hospital. At the Traumaville Medical Center, the doctor informs Mrs. Murphy, Chrissy's mother, that her daughter just lost a baby. Despite Mrs. Murphy adamantly denying such a possibility, the doctor insists that their tests show Chrissy was, in fact, 9 months pregnant. Warren visits and comforts Chrissy at the hospital, then encounters a furious Mrs. Murphy out in the hall. Back at the school, a student finds the mutant creature in the toilet and flushes it down. The creature travels down the network of pipes before re-emerging in the fallout shelter and plummeting into a barrel of radioactive waste. That afternoon at school, Eddie takes Warren to the science laboratory to fiddle with a laser machine. The science teacher, Mr. Hyde, catches and scolds them, warning the boys that careless use of the laser, such as pointing it at radioactive isotopes, could blow up the entire building. Meanwhile, Spike, Gonzo, and Muffy enter the men's room to intimidate a student into buying more atomic high from them. Warren walks in on the scene and throws the spliff away, allowing the scared student to escape. The Cretans gang up on Warren, but he briefly manages to fight them off. He clocks Muffy and sets her down inside a stall. Remorseful for punching a girl, Spike ambushes and subdues Warren, and with Gonzo's help, subjects the boy to a swirly. A teacher intervenes, sending Warren to the nurse's office and rounding up the Cretans at the principal's office. After finding a good number of weapons on the Cretans, Principal Wesley authorizes the gang's expulsion from the school. The Cretans roundly mock the principal and his criticisms, singing the Star-Spangled Banner in a sardonic tone. At the nuclear plant, sick workers collapse one by one, the effects of the radiation leak becoming more evident than ever. A few days pass, and plant workers seal off sections of the school that show radiation signatures. One worker finds his way down in the fallout shelter, disregarding his machine's off-the-scale readings as a malfunction. A clawed hand pokes out from a barrel, which the worker initially misses. He then investigates the bubbling sound from the barrel and accidentally drops his mask in the sludge. The worker manages to retrieve it after some resistance, unaware that the substance is radioactive waste. He decides to leave but checks out the barrel one last time upon hearing the bubbling noise again. The clawed hand slashes him across the face and pulls him into the sludge, regurgitating only a severed hand and an employee ID. A supervisor at the nuclear plant reports to Mr. Paley, informing him that the entire east wing of the school is contaminated. Paley refuses advice to have the school closed, deciding instead to do cleanup at night under the guise of structural repairs. He also orders the assigned workers to refrain from mentioning radioactivity to anyone in the school. At a car scrapyard, the Cretans grow restless at being unable to sell their wares since getting expelled. Spike decides to get revenge on Warren, gesturing to a car getting crushed as an allusion to the boy's fate. At the school grounds, Spike delegates his goons to set off the evacuation alarm and to take Chrissy to the fallout shelter. Moments later, Muffy forces Chrissy to go down to the basement room, where a Cretan named Taru torments the frightened girl. Meanwhile, Gonzo, Muffy, and 2 other Cretans sneak into Wesley's office and hold the principal at gunpoint. The gang demands to know where the evacuation alarm button is when a faculty member walks in on them, prompting Spud to shoot her. Wesley caves and reveals the button's location, and Gonzo proceeds to use it to announce a nuclear emergency that requires evacuation. Chaos ensues as students make a panic dash for the exits. At the fallout shelter, Spike and Taru torment Chrissy, then they hear the alarm go off. In the hallways, Warren fights through the crowd as he tries to find his girlfriend. News of the panic at the high school reaches Mr. Paley, as workers also leave the nuclear plant in droves. At the school's parking lot, Warren asks the students whether they've seen Chrissy. To no avail. Spike orders Taru to bring Warren to the shelter, using Chrissy's blood-smeared necklace as bait. Muffy later hands the necklace to Warren outside, telling him that Chrissy is waiting for him in the shelter. The Cretans then ride their motorcycles into the school, chasing Warren around its halls, vandalizing property, and causing all sorts of mayhem. Warren makes his way to the shelter, where he finds Spike holding Chrissy at knife point. Spike promises gruesome torture on Chrissy while keeping a furious Warren at bay with his gun. Suddenly, the creature in the barrel behind the Cretans emerges, a mutated behemoth with green skin and spikes all over its body. Warren manages to snatch his girlfriend out of the way. As the creature proceeds to punch a hole through Taru's head, the couple escape upstairs, as Spike vainly attempts to kill the creature with his gun. The Cretan leader stumbles out of the creature's reach and runs for the upper floor. Outside, Mr. Paley arrives in his fancy car and dismisses a teacher's warning about a radiation leak. Claiming everything's normal at his plant, Paley decides to go and investigate the school himself. Inside, the creature violently intercepts a Cretan pursuing Warren and Chrissy. When Gonzo stops to inspect his friend's body, the creature stabs him through the head with its scorpion-like tail. Meanwhile, Principal Wesley manages to make his way outside, revealing to a teacher that the alarm was set off as a prank by the Cretans. The creature continues to stalk the school halls, catching Muffy and Spud by surprise and decapitating the latter. Warren and Chrissy end up hiding in the science lab, where they find Spike wildly waving his pistol around, anticipating the creature. Spike catches the couple when Warren carelessly topples over a graduated cylinder of acid and points his gun at them. Warren claims to know what the creature is, warning the Cretan against harming them if he wants to survive. All of a sudden, the monster's tail wraps around Spike's leg and drags him across the floor. When the creature pulls Spike close, it riddles his face with deadly spines. The couple tries to escape, but the creature captures Chrissy, pulling the girl towards its ugly maw. Desperate for a way to save his girlfriend, Warren turns the laser machine on and fires it at the creature, rescuing Chrissy from its grasp. The laser reacts with the monster's radioactivity, causing it to flail in agony as it emanates a pulsating bright glow. On their way out of the building, the couple encounters Mr. Paley going the opposite direction, but the plant owner ignores their warnings and continues inside. Paley finds the glowing radioactive creature in the lab moments before it explodes. Just as Warren and Chrissy make it to the crowd outside, the school crumbles to pieces from the blast, and a voice on loudspeaker announces that it'll be closed for remodeling. The students celebrate while Warren kisses Chrissy, relieved at their narrow escape. Days later, during the clearing of the debris, another mutant tadpole-like creature wriggles out of the wreckage.